My name is Sara Yacobi-Harris. I am one of the co-founders of No Silence on Race. I'm also a documentary filmmaker and an educator.
Hi, my name is Akilah, Allan-Silverstein. I am a co-founder of No Silence on Race, and I'm a financial planner. Yeah, No Silence on Race began in 2020. I think it was around the time when I think globally we're kind of having a racial reckoning and really having deep conversations about race, about racism, and kind of how that intersects with different identities. And Sara and I actually met on a call about allyship that her and Rivka Campbell were leading. And then we, got introduced afterwards, jumped on a call, and she and some other Jews of color were already authoring or co-authoring a letter, an open letter to the Jewish community, kind of expressing realistically some of the disappointment that we felt at kind of like the erasure of being Black Jews. Most of the statements were very arm's length, where it was, the Jewish community stands with the Black community, as if we didn't exist within the Jewish community as well. And so that letter was released, and it was a statement expressing, how we felt being in the community, what the changes we wanted to see, and it outlined a nine-pillar step process of how we wanted organizations to do this work and how we wanted them to improve, to be more inclusive, to be more anti-racist, and create, more Jewish spaces that we felt welcomed in and celebrated and really a part of.
One of many highlights for us has been how many people we've been able to reach and how many people have come to us and said, I feel really seen with the work that you're doing. And I also have often not felt myself maybe necessarily welcomed in Jewish spaces, or not always found that my identities have been represented in Jewish spaces. And it's so fantastic to see the work that you're doing. And we want to be a part of it in any way, whether that's showing up to in-person events, whether that's supporting in a digital way, or amplifying the work that we're already doing. It's just been so exciting to see so many diverse, multi-ethnic Jews from across Canada join into our work and support our work.
There's a lot of times, I think definitely in the beginning when, most of our work was really just doing discussions with synagogues or with other Jewish organizations, and people really wanted to kind of hear the personal stories and the anecdotes of experiences, negative general experiences that we've had within the community. Really open up the conversation and get people to understand why our work is important and what we're working towards avoiding for the next generation. I think that was definitely challenging, and there's only so much you really sometimes feel open to sharing, on the day or depending on the crowd, and doing that over and over, it became kind of emotionally exhausting. I think we all kind of agreed on that. But I think that was where, our work also, we had to take a step back and figure out where we wanted to focus and what was the most important contribution we could make to the community, which kind of ended up being content that really tells the stories of a variety of Jews of color, and continue to do that work versus just personal anecdotes, because there's a point when that's not enough, and now we need to take that step forward. There's an issue. How can we fix it? What can we do to provide and kind of make, bridge that gap of the lack of knowledge within the community? For me, my highlight is all the events we do, and continually our work kind of reaching different audiences, and then finding more and more people who identify as being a Jew of color, kind of stepping forward and identifying themselves, when a lot of times they really kind of left that part of their identity, at the door, so to speak. So I think that's been kind of a highlight, because now, when the numbers question is asked, well, I still don't have a concrete number for you. There's a lot of us, and there's a lot of us, and we continue to find more and more people who, kind of fit that description. In terms of being excited about Black History Month, when I think of seeing all these stories that are being shared, yes, it is exciting to see, historical figures and people being recognized for their contributions to history and inventions, etc. But I also think the new focus that I keep seeing where people are putting, Black History Month and future, I really like that concept, because it's kind of we can highlight people that are contemporary who are also doing great things, and really kind of showcasing what the Black communities are doing now, and with the focus on how do we move forward. And so that to me is also really important, and I like that shift in focus.
In the US, they have stats and numbers to talk about, well, how many Jews of color are there? And a lot of the questions we were getting asked, well, how many Jews of color are there? And we would say, well, we don't know. not only has there been no statistics on it, but I think anecdotally, the reality is that majority of Jews of color that I have met have actually been outside of Jewish spaces, not inside Jewish spaces. So the reality is that a lot of the time, because folks don't see themselves represented in spaces, you're not going to find them in the spaces where you want them to be. And therefore the challenge is, how do you attract them to the spaces that you want them to come to when they're not actually going to be looking for that space because they don't think that's going to be a space for them. So it's this very complicated challenge that I think is the second piece of how where institutions are putting their efforts to, but also a reality that we have to be aware of, that a lot of folks that identify as multi-ethnic Jews have not historically shown up in Jewish communal spaces.
I think we've brought the issue to the surface. We've talked about what the issues are, what needs to be addressed. And now it's realistically time for content creation. It's time for collecting the stories, for collecting the narratives of various groups of Jews of color, and really integrating that into the curriculums, into the programming that we do, and really engaging those different communities, within the larger community, and making sure, again, we know this stuff takes time. So I think in a lot of our, our outlines and our plans, it was a 3 to 5 year plan to develop leadership, to mentor people of, different various backgrounds, to make sure they're represented in the leadership. And so continuing to work on that, not just taking the box, and making sure that we're staying on this path to really create, an inclusive anti-racist community, and make sure we have Jewish spaces that start to attract the numbers of Jews of color that exist within Canada, Toronto, wherever you are.
So this April 2023, we have a very exciting news. Periphery will be mounted again in a museum space in downtown Toronto. We're going to be part of MyZeum Intersectional Festivals. So we're going to have the portraits mounted in a very different way. It's going to be a slightly different exhibition, and we're really excited to be bringing back Periphery to a downtown audience, attracting student groups this time around, because when we mounted it the first time around, COVID really disrupted the ability for people to come in person and engage with the portraits. And we're going to have another opening night, so we're going to have another in-person screening of Periphery, and we're going to be in this gallery space for the whole month of April. So we're very excited to share that with folks and have people come out and join us both for the opening event, have student groups come to the space, and for people to enjoy Periphery for the entire month of April.
Follow us on Instagram at No Silence on Race. You can email us at nosilenceonrace@gmail.com. Our website is nosilenceonrace.ca. And if you want to see our feature film, Periphery, portrait series, and curriculum, it's at peripheryexhibit.org.